Okay, we're going to start today's video off by doing a little modification to this point from last night. What I noticed on the real ones, on the real Nolans, is the base is flat and these notches are a little bit bigger. So that's what I'm going to do. Kind of quickly here, and I'm going to change this one into a Nolan also. Yeah, so I'm going to offer two Nolans together. So let's see, I'm just going to continue with the beveling process. Flatten out the base. Now on real Nolans, there's a lot of big bold flakes. And some of them look a little bit crude, but some of them are well made. So I'm just going to take little flakes because it's safer. And I'm just going to make the stem a little bit more narrow. And these notches a little bit bigger. Or wider, I should say. They're already super wide, but I'm going to make them even wider. Just downward pressure. These stems were kind of long on the Nolans. Now someone asked me in the comment section, is this a spear point? I think some of them might have been spear points, yeah. Because they range in size. There's a big size range for these. Now, it's not typical to have a big size range for a point style. Usually point styles are pretty consistent. But with some point styles, there is a large size range, and this is one of them. I don't think these were ground down in the stem area. No. Okay, so it just has that bevel. They do have slight ears sometimes. So I left this with some slight ears. And a flattened base. Straight. Yeah. I think the notches could be a little bit even wider. But I'll leave that. I don't want to take too long. All right. Now when I make these wide, I'm going to lose the barbs. Oh well. So you might ask, why am I doing this to this particular point and not just leave it? Well, I didn't really like it with the notches that it had, because it looks too generic that way. Yeah, I think it looks too generic, too common. So I'm just gonna make this one into a Nolan. It's actually much easier to do that with raw stone, right? To make this particular style with raw stone. Because you don't have to worry about narrow notches. And you can do the notches with indirect percussion as well. Or regular percussion. You can even take a hammerstone and delicately put in the notches. Can you bevel with the hammerstone? Yeah. You can bevel. Alright, so I'll offer these two together. This one is a previous one. It has a crack in it. Now I might be able to skin that off by shooting a flake this way, because I don't think the crack goes very deep, but then it would kind of curve, so I don't want to put the curve in it. It's already getting slightly curved because this side has been scooped out a little bit much. I think that's a natural crack in the stone, because the stone I used was pretty cracked to begin with. Yeah, the notches could be wider, because I think these had longer stems than this, but I'll just leave it like this. Okay. Now this is a piece of heat treat that I bifaced on a different video, I think. I had it sitting there. I don't remember now what I was going to do with it. And I went in my yard and I found a rock that looks like a good hammerstone. I already started beating on it a while ago. This was a hammerstone I've had in my yard for years. This is not a real one. This is a type of stone that real ones are made from, but this is not a real hammerstone. This is one of mine. But I'm going to try the swiping technique with it, because it has a good flat area there, semi-flat, that should work. The weight is kind of good. It should power through just about anything. There is a flat spot there that feels pretty good for the swiping technique. Okay. It doesn't grab the stone very well, the hammerstone, but it can produce some nice flakes. In case you didn't know, in case you're wondering. There's a crack in there. I don't know if it was because of the heat treatment, or if that's a natural crack. Yeah, I could probably use a hammerstone for a braiding, but it takes a lot longer. This was making me nervous, so that's why I'm not talking too much. That's my excuse. And why am I using a hammerstone? I'm just curious to see how it's going to work. I took another heat treat batch out of the roaster, behind the tripod base there's a big pile of heat treat, and some of it broke up. I got disappointed. I heated it too high. 475 degrees was too high for that batch, so I lost about 20%, I would say. So I've got to spend a little time with that batch and mark the stone that failed, mark the temperature on the stone that failed, and make sure I don't do that same failure again. Yeah. Take some pictures and stuff, but mainly put marks on the stone. Some of it was fine. It's the same exact stone. Some of it ended up being fine and some of it broke up. But it's safer to heat it at a lower temperature in general, even though some of it survived the 475 degrees. Yeah, the hammerstone does not grab the edge like aluminum, but it does remove some effective flakes. The artificial abrader is just a lot faster for abrading. Now, yeah, I could use a sandstone. I don't have to use this pink or purple stone. I don't know if it's a mudstone or what. Maybe it's a type of granite. I don't know. Probably not granite. It's a quartzite. Yeah. Just has a lot of mineral pigmentation. Yeah, without it gripping the edge, I really can't sand in long flakes like I want. Let's see. Yeah, I can feel a big difference in the way the aluminum grabs the edge. The aluminum grabs the edge a lot like antler would grab it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's feels a lot better than the hammerstone. It will spoil you. The aluminum will spoil you. Yeah, I just blew off the tip there by mistake. I got some points on my list to make, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm just going to wing it tonight. And get down to business tomorrow. Let's see if this hammerstone will do this. Yeah, it doesn't quite have the range of the aluminum. This is what I would classify as a hard hammerstone. It's not, it's almost a medium, but not quite. And you new guys, it would be hard for you to tell what is medium, what is soft, and what is hard hammerstones. Without someone shipping you the different hardnesses and have it labeled on there so you know what the difference is. I've had some new guys show me the hammerstones, and they call them soft, and they're not really soft, or they call them hard hammerstones, they're not really hard. That kind of thing. I'm trying to go as far as I can with the direct percussion. I'm reaching the limit. Did they used to thin them down really thin with hammerstones back in the day? Well, nobody knows for sure, but it is possible to thin it way down with a hammerstone. Yes. And how do they do it? What do we learn? With practice. That's how they did it. It looks the same as this, but they have a lot more practice, so they can get it a lot thinner. Everything looks the same. Everything is the same, but they have different results because they have more practice back in the day. That's how they did it, with more practice. If it looks impossible, it's because they had a huge amount of practice. In addition to the stone being probably not as tough as you think. Because some heat treat looks just like raw stone. It looks just the same. And sometimes there's just very little difference. But that very little subtle difference is all they need to make thin points. Okay. So I got the crack out of this. Now I just got to shape it. And then talk about stuff. I'm going to reduce the width a little bit. Just in case I need to run some flakes in. I'm going to keep this longer side long, as long as I can anyway. I still need to thin it down a little bit. I'll put notches in it, probably make a bell point. I've got lots of spalling I want to do tonight. Well, I don't want to do it, but I need to do it. I don't always feel like napping, believe it or not. Especially having a full day of being Mr. Taxi. Yep. So yeah, sometimes I just sit in my shop and I do this kind of napping in silence. I don't play the radio or anything. Play the radio. I usually don't listen to music. I hardly listen to any radio stations anymore. Right? Like nobody does. Very few people actually listen to radio stations these days. It's all Spotify or something like that. So some of you guys got this kind of heat treat from me. Maybe this will show you what I do. I've been offering a lot of heat treat in the auctions. I think I sent out some of this stuff. This translucent looking stuff. Now in the perfect world, when you make a bell point, you want to thin out those areas where the notches are going to go. But I always forget. I will try to do it this time. Many times when I try to do specific thinning, end up with stuff like that, cracks and weird stuff. Sometimes it doesn't work out. I got the best intentions of trying to thin down those areas that need to be thinned before I notch, but then it doesn't always work. I end up removing a lot of the base, and then it gets thicker instead of thinner. Undetached flakes. Gotta do damage control and stuff. And I lose a lot of the base, and it starts getting thicker again. Because, you know, it tapers down to this base, and as you remove the base, you're moving into the thicker area. So it doesn't do you any good to try to thin it down in some cases. It requires a lot of skill to thin down the base in preparation for notching. Lots of skill, lots of practice. You only want to remove a minimum amount of the edge. So if you're already used to removing a minimum amount, you're in good shape. I try to always remove the minimum of any edge while flaking, so it doesn't end up thick. Yeah, the more narrow it gets, the ratio of width to thickness starts to increase. And all that. Okay. I'm a little bit worried about that, but not too bad. Okay. Yeah, andice points and bell points are one of those things that people request that I do quite often. And I usually try not to do too many of those andice points because it requires very careful notching and using vertical punches is very effective with andice, but I never seem to get around to getting a vertical punch made, mainly because I've already broken a lot of points with vertical punches. I prefer just to crunch them in, crunch in the notches. I break less points that way. I gotta make sure. See, as I start going inward, I'm going to start hitting the side, so I can't go very deep. Let's see. I can use this one as a notcher. The thing is, it's not as comfortable because of this long stem here. But I'll try. Yeah, no, it's not going to work. I mean, it is working, but it doesn't feel comfortable. I should take some time and narrow this down with a file. Let's see. There's going to be some file noises for you guys with headphones. You might not like it. This one's not too bad. See, I'm taking down the thickness. Yeah, I watched a video today on using hand tools and stuff. I'm trying to use more hand tools and less machinery. I spent entirely too much time watching videos today. When the next winter comes around, I want to spend more time up north. And that means I need a shop that's going to be warm enough to work in during the winter, during the dead of winter. And I don't have a shop up in New Hampshire or Vermont. So I'll have to work out of my van again. I'll be using hand tools, no machinery, because I don't want to be hooked up to an extension cord like I was before. I want to try to do everything off grid. I got solar panels. I'll try hooking those up, and I can charge up battery powered tools probably. And use those if I'm pressed for time. But I'm going to try to use power tools very rarely this coming winter. Oops. That landed on some pile of chips and flakes. The chips and flakes can break off the tip. Alright, much better. It gives me more room to go deeper. Okay. If I can pop those out. Those cool little semicircular flake pop outs. You can do that with a vertical punch too. See those? You can do that with the vertical punch pretty easily. But when I use a vertical punch, I get too confident and I break everything. Yeah, I get too confident with the pressure too. So what? Change the strategy? Yeah, change the strategy. See, with a vertical punch, I usually don't snap it that way. I snap it up this way. What can I make out of it now? I'm trying to see if I can make something that can look good lopsided like this. A modern knife blade. Yeah. And I can make a knife blade out of it. Hold on. What I'm going to do is go with this shape. And use that as the central notch of my tang. You'll see in a minute. I gotta get that light closer. Let's see. I don't even know. I don't know if that's better. Now, one thing I've been experimenting with in the past is when I do a knife like this, to make the back thicker than the blade. So I'm just going to kind of bevel the back and not thin it down, thicken it up. I leave a little indentation there for the wrapping, in case you're wondering. Sometimes I put serrations right there. Why? Because it just looks cool. No particular reason other than looks. Sometimes I'll grind it right there too, so you have a place to put your thumb. Especially if it's a small handle. You know, kind of have your thumb up here. You know, a small little handle like this. It'll fit into something like this. Sometimes when you cut, put your thumb up here. So if you grind this part down, you won't get cut, obviously. And I usually grind the inside of that right there. In case you don't know. In case you missed my other knife making videos. Knife blade making. Yeah, I said I was going to do a knife sharpening video. How to sharpen knives. That's it for this knife blade. It's perfect for a handle that's like this thick or thereabouts. Maybe a little bit thinner. That's a little bit too thin. Oops. Anyway, you get the idea. It's just a short blade for a knife. Skinning type knife, I suppose. Alright, so that's what that became. 38 minutes. What can I make out of this one? I'm just picking up the scraps from my table over here. Stuff I've been putting aside to see if I can nap it later. Let's see. If I work on this, it'll only be pressure flaking. Let's see. Oh, excuse me. I think I could nap this down. Yeah, let's see. I can't remember if this is a heat treat. I think this is a heat treat. Let's find out. Sometimes I can tell, sometimes I can't tell. It feels like a heat treat. Could be high quality raw. Let me see, I'm not doing very well. That was pretty bad. I crushed the heck out of that one. Let's see. Yeah, it probably is a heat treat. One of those tough heat treats. Okay. Yeah, it could be one of those tough heat treats. Now, would it be better if I put it back in at high temperature, like 550? No, a lot of times I don't. If it's tough, it's okay, as long as it's not too tough. Yeah, as long as it's not too tough. Come on. That's better. Much better. I like it. Yeah, I'll save this little bitty. I got some projects coming up that I'm going to use those for. One of these days. What kind of project would use little bitty flakes? Miniature projects, of course. Miniature flakes for miniature projects. Yeah. I've showed some miniature stuff on this channel before. Oh yes. Now the chances of finding those particular flakes again is pretty low, but at least I got them. Just in case. Just in case by luck I find them again in that box I threw them in. Or, you know, I go through my boxes and say, where are some small little good quality flakes? Let me see if there's some in this box. No? Let's go to the next box. Yeah, there's some little good ones in here. I think I remember doing these little flakes on video. Sometimes I say that. Sometimes I don't. I hope I'm not getting too old to remember the stuff I do on these videos. So what am I going to do? This thins down really nicely, so should I make a really thin type of thing? I don't know. It depends on how well I don't step it. Yeah. If I don't step fracture it too badly, well, that was good. In the preliminary stages, if I don't step fracture it or make it all wonky too much, I can thin it down. We shall see. Yeah, I can make some good flakes this stuff. Oh yes. This reminds me of a hornstone by the color, but it's not. It's a Texas chert from somewhere. Texas has so many varieties of chert that I don't know. It's almost impossible to memorize each type. They all got their local nicknames, and I'm not about to memorize all of them. And sometimes you can get the same kind of stone from different areas. So the same stone has two nicknames. Yeah. Oh, dang it. What did I do? Same thing I always do on the tips. How thin can I go? I can go as thin as my lack of mistakes allows me. Obviously. I don't know why I did that. Probably because I hit at the wrong angle. You know, I can hit when the indirect percussion flaker strikes. Sometimes I strike in a weird angle in some way without thinking, and it causes those cracks like that. That could be one reason. Or I could just have hit the platform wrong. Or there's a little piece of stone embedded in the steel. That'll do it too. How it does it, I don't know. But having little pieces of stone embedded in the steel can do weird things. I could pretend it's Hornstone and make a point that Hornstone was used for. But I'm not. This is starting to curve a little bit. Now where the real ones curved, that's another mistake that was left in on the artifacts. I was talking about that yesterday. What mistakes are left in? And one of them is curvature. Oh yeah. They would mount curved points to either knife handles or at that'll dart foreshafts. Oh yeah. Is there proof of that? No, I don't have any proof. Other than maybe one. I think there's one that I've seen that's an little dart point with a foreshaft that has a curved point hafted to it. It's not a major curve. I got some notes on that little dart points. I've got various at little dart hafted at little dart foreshafts and points in my notes from the internet. That's up in Vermont. Yeah. Got a storage unit up there. It's actually in New Hampshire. See, I lived right on the border of New Hampshire and Vermont, so I'd be in both states every day. And that's why you'll hear me say sometimes New Hampshire, sometimes Vermont. In case you didn't know. Yeah, that's where my dad lives. My dad lives in Vermont, right on the border with New Hampshire. And that's where I stayed. But I tried looking around for different parks and places to go to look at the scenery and look for rocks and look for wood for bows and arrows and bushcraft and stuff. Lots of wood species up there. A lot more forest than here in West Texas, that's for sure. There's really no forest out here. There's no rocks either where I'm at here in this part of Texas. No knappable rocks. Got to bring them in from at least an hour away. At least by car. Yeah, walking it would take days. So back in the day, the Indians would walk days and days to get knappable rocks. The ones that lived in this area. I would venture to say that most areas in the U.S. don't have knappable rocks. You have to walk for days and days, sometimes months, to the quarry sites. So you might make it part of your yearly migration from, north to south or south to north, escaping the hot or cold weather, or both. It's miserable to be too hot or too cold, so you migrate. And the animals migrate too. So people and animals would migrate together. And along the way you go to your quarries. Pick up some stones. Now when you pick up stones, it's best to pick them up when the foliage has fallen in the fall. And before the snow hits the ground. So you can see past the vegetation, and there's no snow, so it's not covering your stone hunting grounds. So there's a little bit of a window of opportunity there. So I think most of the stone gathering was in the fall, before winter set in. Because winter sets in, you kind of hunker down and get in your lodge, and then you use up all your wood and all your firewood and stored up dried meat, and you work on Flintknapping after you've already collected your stuff. Yep. Over the winter. And it's okay, because I think men had separate lodges from the women in many cases. And that makes sense, because the men are going to be Flintknapping. There's going to be chips everywhere. You don't want the kids exposed to the chips. That kind of thing. Yeah, I think stone tool production has always been an important part of life. So you got to think about the precautions that needed to be taken, and the resulting cultural influences that the skill has. You know, the skill of flint knapping has influences on the culture. It's dangerous work. The flakes are dangerous. They can cause injury just by stepping on them. Not to mention the flying pieces. If the flying pieces get in your eyes, you know how that works. So yeah, the men would take the risks. Do the dangerous work. I don't like to admit it, but yeah, men back in the day, or still are, they're kind of expendable, you know. You don't need a whole lot of men to continue the species. You can figure that one out. You can figure that one out on your own. Why you don't need very many men to carry on the species. Yeah. In fact, I think in the archaeological record, there's evidence of bottlenecks where there are very few males available for whatever reason. Yeah. Taking too many risks, maybe. Maybe. Why don't I use a file on this? Because the file is delicate, believe it or not. If rock chips hit the file, they dull the file really fast. How do I know this? I don't know. I've never had a file get really dull on me. Yeah. I'm not good at lying. Let's see. Yes, I got that. And yeah, I do get itchy with those step fractures. I don't like them. I get the itch to try to get rid of the step fracturings. So I'm guilty of that too. Don't worry. I might just leave that one in because that was going to be a pain in the, you know what. Let's see. Have I read any good archaeological studies lately? I just read an article that let's see, what was the latest article that I read that was kind of interesting? Other than the article that I read that it pushes the date back in the Americas. First Americans. Everybody knows that the dates are getting earlier and earlier for the earliest Americans. I think I already mentioned that one before. I can't remember the latest. I read another one. And I don't know if there's a problem with the carbon-14 dating or what. I think there might be a problem with it. I'm sure a lot of you guys already know problems with the carbon-14 dating related to old volcanoes that spew ash, and when that ash covers an area, it makes it either look older or younger. I can't remember. I think it makes the area look older than it is when it's covered with this volcanic ash. So that's one thing that's stopping a lot of archaeologists from trusting some of these dates that seem really old. If there was a big volcanic eruption, the items might not be that old. Yeah. There, I got that out of there. Is it thin enough? Is it a tater chip yet? Kind of. So yeah, I sometimes, what I do is I just practice thinning. Like what I'm doing now is just practicing the thinning. I really don't have anything in mind for what I'm going to do. Nothing planned. It's just thinning, thinning, thinning. And getting rid of little pesky defects. Thinning and damage controlling. Using different tools, bringing out the hammerstone a little bit, bringing out the copper a little bit. Copper mushrooms so fast. Yeah. I like copper though. I do like it. Sometimes I feel like making 20 pressure flakers out of copper so I can just keep switching them out when they start to mushroom. There's nothing better than a nice, well-maintained copper tip. Yeah. Nothing nicer. So nice. What am I going to do with it? I don't know. It looks a little bit curved. I can't straighten it with pressure. I'm going to have to do some indirect percussion strikes to get it straightened out a little bit. Yeah. I don't want to, though. Just do like they did back in the day and leave the curve in there. I'm going to use steel. I don't want to mushroom that copper tip yet. Save it for a more delicate procedure. This pressure is kind of heavy. All right, let's put some notches. I'm getting bored of this one already. Dum-de-dum-de-dum. Or I can just sharpen it up, and that's it. And I filed down my spatula tool. Gotta use it for something now. We're just going to be sitting there all filed down for nothing. Yeah, I made this all nice and flat for notching, and then I broke the notch, or I broke that point with the notching attempt. So now I gotta try another notch attempt. All right, let's see. Yeah, there's a bunch of point styles. Let's see. Let me think here. I'm going to try to go kind of narrow and see how it works. I got to practice my narrow notching, right? Always got to practice the narrow notching, because that's what everybody wants to see. Yeah, it's not going to be that narrow. Narrow notching is for those who like anxiety, I'm convinced. Some people just like anxiety. They like the adrenaline or something. Alright, are we getting... We're not able to see. I'm not able to see what I'm doing, so you're not able to see what I'm doing. It's going to be a tough act to follow on the other side. I keep creeping down. Is that going to be a tough act to follow? I think so. Yeah, it's already, I'm already messing up. I put that notch too low. Yep. Tough act to follow. How do you prevent blowing away the barbs and the ears? Yeah, you don't really, you try, but it's not 100% guaranteed. There's no technique that guarantees you won't blow them away. I'm trying to be careful here. As careful as I can, but there's some luck involved. So, there you go. You never know. Just gotta try to be as symmetrical as possible. It's not always possible to be symmetrical. This stuff feels raw. If it was heat treated, it wouldn't be so fussy. Yeah, that's what I say. It wouldn't be so fussy if it was a heat treat. Come on. Yeah. How do I uninstall it? I just gotta keep at it. Sometimes I can get in there and uninstall it. Sometimes I end up crushing it. Yeah. This is old stuff. Kind of irritating to some people because, you know, I could be doing it a lot better with other methods. Why do I keep insisting on using the method that is going to stall when I could be breaking out my files and using a punch, a vertical punch? Why do I insist on using the spatula tool every time? Well, if I can get good at the spatula tool, it saves a lot of time and energy. Because the spatula tool is very versatile. I can sharpen the edge, I can do notches, I can even do a slight bit of thinning. And it's a very easy tool to make and maintain. So the plus side of using the spatula tool is extensive pluses and extensive pros, hardly any cons, except for the amount of time it takes to get good at using it. That is a con. So I keep on using it until I get some different results. There, I uninstalled it, I popped that out, and I'm going to leave it with a nice pop out. I got see this, the bottom of this notch is concave there. I do the same thing on that side. Symmetritize it. Come on. It is raw. Dang it. Yeah, it's raw stone. It's gotta be. It's just way too crackly. Feels like I'm knapping quartzite when I'm pressure flaking it. It's way too crackly. See, heat treat is a lot like Obsidian in many ways. heat-treated chert is usually tougher, of course, but the way it responds to tools, it's hard to explain, but it responds well to tools when you heat treat it. Yep. If it's resisting the tool, if it's eating it up and making you work extra hard, it's probably raw stuff. That's what I say. Yeah, so I did some side notches. I'll do a center notch too. How's that? Should I send in a thinning flaker too? Yeah, I could. Try to get all fancy schmancy. Did it do it? I didn't do it. I was trying to get a flake to go that way. Up that way. Just a little pop out, that's all I need. Yeah, a little pop out like that, just to make it look cool. Make some room for the glue. Maybe some on the other side too, right? Yeah, I can do a little pop out like that on the other side too. It's already got kind of one, but that's too big. I'm gonna do a little pop out. Just for grins and giggles. Okay? That's all I want. Just a little bit of grinning and giggling, okay? That's it. Yeah, I didn't get it. There's my pop out. I tried to get that step fracture too right there. But I just wanted that pop out in the middle. Yeah, cool. Alright, that's it. I'm just going to try to tease away that step fracture with a little bit of pressure. See if I can get it. No? Maybe? It's not going to let me do it because it's already dull. Now I got some metal marks in there. Yeah. What do you do with the metal marks? Not much. You just got to try to flake them away sometimes. If you're able to. Let's see. A little more pressure flaking and I'll be done. What is it, a martindale? Yeah, I suppose. Unless I make it more rounded, then no one knows what it is. Make that notch more rounded. I'll just leave it. That's a good practice session for tonight. Yeah. It would look good on a little dark foreshaft. Oh yes. Not translucent. I like making these things out of root beer chert, but this will do. I don't know. I think it might be too small for a martindale, but it might pass for a martindale. The edge is still dull right there. Let's see. Why is it dull right there? Did I grind it there? Better. Much better. Did it mess with the symmetry? A little bit. But if you don't have it a little bit messed up, it's not going to look real. Yeah. The old ways say, don't make it symmetrical. You want to do it like the old ways? One of the mistakes they left in, lack of symmetry. That's another mistake they would leave in. If you don't have a lack of symmetry, you're not doing it like they used to do it. That's all I'm saying. I'm just sharpening it. Sharpening it. Trying to thin down the edge. It feels really grippy like a raw stone, so I think it's raw. So yeah. Let's see. Just so I don't forget. Nah, I'm not going to mark on it. No, just leave it. So I got these available. These two together and then this separately. In case someone wants it. And then this one. I'll try to make a bunch more. And try to go with a lot of points this week. Instead of mostly just flakes and stuff. Yeah. Let's see, what else? What else? I'm trying to think of what else I need to do. I need to do a heat treat tonight. Man. I'm going to heat treat a bunch more of this. Coastal plains at a higher temperature. I'm going to go to 400 or 425. Somewhere in that range. The last batch was 345, I believe. Which is good, but I think it can go a little bit. I think it can go a little bit hotter, so I'm going to try a little bit hotter. Okay. Alrighty. That's it.